Welcome to the Big Motor Small Blade podcast. I'm Seth Dolby. Our usual co-hosts, Buddy Pulley and Chase Folsom, aka Chuck, are here, and we're also joined by Joe. Say hey, Joe.
Hello, my name is Joe. I like race cars.
Yes, he does. And we are here to talk about New Hampshire and other fun stuff. How's everybody doing?
I'm doing good. I
was doing good until I saw that Buddy and Buddy Pulley are in this Zoom call. It really bothers me so much.
Yeah, dude.
It hasn't stopped raining up here in the Northeast. We just happen to use rain tires
because we got the race in.
It stopped raining long enough, and then as soon as it stopped racing, it started pouring again. But
it's better than it could have been.
We got a successful race in, and other than that, it's been soaking wet.
I don't know about successful race, but we got a race in. Joe, how you doing?
Everything's great. Just ready to get back in my race car. I'm doing great, man. I'm on the freaking Big Motor Small Blade podcast. These three handsome men. I'm doing great.
No, you're returning to the Big Motor Small Blade podcast.
That's right. I have been here before. It was a while. It was a long time ago.
It was a long time. It was back when we were pushing a grand old total of 40 subscribers back when Joe was on here the first time.
That's insane.
Yeah. Now they're pushing 700, and if you guys haven't subscribed yet, you should do that so you can hit that. We'll get right into it. I brought Joe on here because Joe, on top of being our friend, is an aficionado of other racing other than NASCAR. And so I thought this would be a great time to bring Joe in because a couple weeks ago, I was listening to the Dale Jr. download, and he had Elton Sawyer on talking about OEMs coming into the sport and the different type of engine packages they may be looking at. And one thing he brought up was BOP, balance of performance. And I thought that was interesting that he brought that up because I haven't heard it be brought up in discussions about a new motor for the car or new OEMs at all. And I haven't heard anybody really touch on it since. And I immediately messaged Joe and said, hey, I think you would be a great person to come in and explain how BOP works in other forms of racing and how it may pertain to NASCAR. Because essentially how Elton Sawyer said was a new OEM is not going to come in and build a pushrod V8 motor, which is what we race currently. And what Toyota, Ford, and Chevrolet all raced. Toyota, when they came into the sport, built their own. They didn't have one. They built their own. But he mentioned, possible turbocharged engines. Obviously the next gen was built with the intention of a hybrid component being added. So Joe, go ahead and just explain to us what BOP is when it pertains to other racing, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So to start off, BOP is a shortening of the term balance of performance. And balance of performance basically means that what you're doing is you're taking different engines, different cars, different whatevers, and you're formulating a way to balance out the competition between cars on a racetrack. This all started in mid-2000s. It was actually started by the GT3 spec of GT racing, which is at this point now what they race at, like Le Mans and the 24 Hours of Daytona. But at that time, it was more of a low level because at that time we were still racing GT1 and GT2, which were not balanced in performance. Basically, what it was you had teams like, say, you've got your flat six from Porsche, you've got a V12 in an Aston Martin, you've got V8s in other cars. I don't even know what BMWs run. I don't really root for BMW much. It's kind of ass, but that's beside the point. Basically, what you had was you had teams running different engines in different configurations with different cars. So you've got a completely different aerodynamic package between a Ferrari and a BMW. You've got a completely different motor between a Lamborghini and an Aston Martin. You've got a completely different engine location between like a Porsche and a Corvette, because where the engine is physically in a car has a big play in how it handles and how it can run. And if you think back, a long time ago in, say, Formula One, way back in the 60s, people just brought whatever. Matra built a V12, Ferrari built V8s and V12s. There was the Fords. There was all this, whatever, just stuff. And at the very beginning of that, our engines weren't like reliable at that time. Even, I mean, it's kind of crazy to say that because they were pretty good, but they weren't reliable like we have today. So it didn't matter as much, but it was a way to drive technology forward. You jump forward a bunch of years and you're starting to deal with cars like you've got really big BMWs, so they're heavy. You've got the Porsches, which have a lightweight configuration in their rear engine, so they handle really well. And you've got everybody else in between. You've got Lamborghinis with screaming V12s. The idea was, how can we balance it out so that when these teams show up, no matter if they have a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or an Aston Martin or whatever, they are competitive against each other and we have good racing. Elsewise, what you have is basically what we have in Formula One, where Max Verstappen has a better car with a great engine, and he's a good driver, and he just sweeps everything. So it was in an effort to make it a little bit more even. So what they would do is they would wind tunnel test a car. They'd check out its aerodynamic platform and its drag. They would take the engine, and they'd mainly look at displacement, so how big the engine is, how big the actual cylinders are inside of the engine. That equates to how much horsepower and output power the engine has. And they would sanction amongst the manufacturers different things that could balance everybody out. So if the Porsche was lighter, they would force them to run a different engine mapping. If the BMW was heavier, they allowed them to run a bigger engine. And the idea was that they would offset each other. So in the end, as best as possible, they could make it that no matter what car you were running, it was the same. So when you talk about it with NASCAR, the idea behind that is, realistically speaking, in the world we live in, and I'm an engineer and I love my V8s. I'm an American boy. Don't get me wrong. But realistically, in our world, who's putting V8s in production cars? Not
Nobody.
Not a lot of people. Right. So when you look at the manufacturers that could come in, personally, I always look at Honda. I think that's very realistic. And they put money into racing. I mean, they're taking all their money out of IndyCar, so maybe they'll put it somewhere else. You look at them, like what V8s do they use? They don't use V8s. So there's no reason for them to show off a V8 Honda engine in the NASCAR race at the Daytona 500 when it has no actual affiliation with engines they run in the real world. So the idea would be, if Honda comes in and they run an inline 4 or a V6 and they put a turbo on it, the idea is, can they build the car with an aerodynamic platform and or map the engines so that it creates an equal playing field that the Hondas can keep up with the Toyotas, Fords, and Chevys and vice versa, even though they don't have the same basis.
So how do you think, like, say that is say they come in with a V6 turbocharged and they're up against a, the push-rod V8s that we have right now. Like, what could they do to balance that out? Like, get technical with me, because I'm not very smart.
So there's a couple things they can do. I mean, they could take the actual car itself. They could make it more aerodynamic, because they've got to be they're testing the bodyworks of all these cars. They want to make sure that whatever kit you buy to put on your frame, it's not going to give you a significant advantage over everybody else, because number one, that makes the racing boring. And number two, that gives an advantage that people are going to dislike. I mean, and then number three, everybody who has any say in what car they're running, they're just going to buy the best. So aerodynamic platform could be an opportunity for them to give the car, maybe if the horsepower output isn't quite as high, you reduce the amount of drag the car has, so it has to fight itself less to go faster. But honestly, with a V6, if it's twin turbocharged or maybe single turbo, It could be engine mapped, or you could be putting restrictor plates on them for every race. Now, when you have a restrictor plate, when I say restrictor plate, I don't want everybody to automatically think of super speedway racing, because a restrictor plate is not
tapered spacer, maybe like we run currently,
something like that. It's not affecting the racing like we conventionally think of. It would just limit the engine's ability to output power. Or maybe if the Hondas are actually super good in this theoretical, you have to give more power to the rest of the field to keep up. So you could do those are the two main things. And in modern day balance of performance with stuff like the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the two big heavy hitters are the aerodynamic platform, and then they respond with engines and engine displacements. So those are the two big ones.
I have a question that I assume you know the answer to, but if we got to a point where we had balance of performance and we were confident in it, everyone was like, sorry, everyone felt good about it, like no one felt left out or whatever. Could we get to a point where we opened up maybe the bodywork design a little bit to make them look, I mean, they look a lot like their counterparts now, but even more like it? Because like, hey, if someone's got an advantage, well, we'll just take it from something they've got over here. Or is that something we could see possibly down the line if we went this route, do you think?
I think that comes down to NASCAR's ability to allow the teams to do that. I think that NASCAR's stock car racing in at least our lifetimes has developed into a thing where there's a very specific, a very tied to image of what a stock car is. I think back to the Gen 4 cars that, they all were the same with different stickers on them, but that's the shape. People say that's a stock car. That's a NASCAR race car. So I would wonder if NASCAR is concerned about the representation of different cars that maybe don't conventionally display stock car, because that's part of their image. It's part of what NASCAR is to the world. At least when I talk to people who are not in racing, they'll look at a car and that's stock car, but if the stock cars are all different, will they still do that? Great question. But yeah, I mean, theoretically, it really should open them up, because
that's what I was thinking.
The aerodynamics of what a NASCAR looks like, what the Cup cars look like right now, specifically, they all look very similar because they have the same basis, right? They all have the same Schrodt V8 engine inside of them. So if it opens up, I absolutely could see it being a possibility. I think it just comes down to NASCAR itself, because I would definitely see the manufacturers doing it if they had the choice.
Yeah, because like, I mean, how much, if, say the engine rules were opened up in a way that we haven't ever really seen before, I mean, how much can you really work in that area to make it a level playing field without deviating from this spec body that we have today? I would imagine that's extremely difficult.
So, well, your question is pertaining to, like, if they let somebody like Honda or Audi in and they had a different engine, but you kept the cars the same. That's what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I feel like that'd be hard, right?
It would be kind of. It takes away one of the two strongest BOP tools, balance of performance tools. It's the engines and the aero. And if you take out the aerodynamic changes you can make, if BMW comes in and you force them to run a car that basically looks like the others, the only thing you can do is screw with the engines. And I honestly don't think that's a good idea, because that limits your ability to level the playing field.
Yeah. Okay. That's what. Okay. Can you also go into this a little bit, because in doing the little bit of research that I've done, in fact, I was something I took from a Dinner with Racers episode. It's a podcast, great podcast. If anybody wants to listen to it, not better than ours.
That's big facts.
But it was a episode with Corvette factory driver, Johnny O'Connell. And he essentially said, I have a quote written down here, where he was talking about how Corvette was going to the series and saying, hey, we need to improve. We need help in these areas. And the series basically came back and told them, no, we're not going to help you. You need to get your car better. And I know there's a lot of politicking when it comes to this. Can you kind of go a little bit more in depth about the politicking that comes with balance and performance being introduced into a racing series?
That's a fantastic point. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is a very big conversation point when you talk about balance of performance. Basically, so balance of performance on a theoretical is the idea that you take every car and you get them to the point where they are balanced out, that they compete at the same level as the worst car. That is the dictionary definition from the FIA right now, is they basically take all the cars, whatever one's the slowest, they bring everybody else down. I personally do not think that warrants technological advancement. I do not think that supports our ability to use racing for what its true intent was at the beginning of its life. Racing is a place where we are supposed to be developing technology that we put into modern day future and on the road vehicles. It is meant to be a place we can do that. So by using the slowest car as the benchmark, you're limiting everybody who's developed stuff that's better. You're limiting them rather than forcing the people at the bottom to work a little bit harder on their engineering and figure out something better. So at a baseline, what you said is something that I kind of agree with, because in an objective outlook, you need those people who are slow to be faster, because we want the cars to be better. But politics has always been a part of the conversation with BOP, because you run a race that's sponsored by BMW or sponsored by Porsche, and the Porsche wins, and everybody, why is that fair? Is that legitimate? And then there's also sandbagging, which isn't politics, but that's shady stuff that teams do. So when they talk about sandbagging, basically what it is a team will run their car and they will run it at like 80% of its potential, so that when the series officials look at the results and they start figuring out who they need to sandbag, that car, they assume it's running at 100%. But then when you get to the race, it hasn't been running at its full potential, and then they just have a clear advantage.
And I want to point out for NASCAR fans that we've seen this example before as far as sandbagging. Specifically, if you go back and watch probably the most famous speedway weeks in NASCAR history, 2001. Dodge is coming in. They test. Dodge is slow during testing. They're middle of the pack at best. And they come back and they win the pole. I think they swept the front row. I don't think they swept the duels, but they won at least one of the duels. They were the fastest cars all week long. And there was a lot of accusations of Dodge sandbagging. And you saw back in the day when you saw midweek during speed weeks, cars would get spoiler, adjustments as far as angles or how tall the spoiler was, and different things to do maybe with the front air dam or something like that. I do want to point out to people who are maybe listening to this that this sounds so foreign, but it's been going on in NASCAR before, back in the heyday that we all know and love.
Yeah, sandbagging is not removed from any form of racing. It happens everywhere. But in terms of to get back onto the politics side of it, I mean, flat up, it's very possible that could be something that could be taken advantage of. It just depends how greedy everybody gets. Does Toyota want to pay more money to have their cars be faster? And everybody goes, what's the deal with this? And NASCAR, oh, it's all even, and then they grab the check behind their back and walk out. It could happen. I've always wondered about that. I've always wondered about balance of performance, because what they do in certain racing series around the world is they get a representative car and driver from the teams in their series, and they'll take them to a racetrack, and they'll have them do a test day, and they'll use that data to balance the cars. You're expecting them to not sandbag, and you're also expecting, in the terms of the politics side, you're expecting them to give everybody fair playing field and equal playing field, and then record the results that, I don't know, people are greedy and people like money. So this kind of thing that just automatically introduces issues and potential for issues, I should say.
Yeah. And that kind of, I would imagine that can be limited by maybe doing the opposite of what they, traditionally do and go off the slowest car. That would be largely reduced. The sandbagging and all that politicking would be reduced by going off of a Hendrick car versus a Rick Ware car. If we're let's get with the times. A Hendrick car and an RCR car. Okay. Yeah. So in a sense, it's kind of like what we did with the next gen car, where we tried to neuter Hendrick, and that's why in 2022 we saw so many different winners, and it'd be kind of like that, but every week. If they went through with the same type of platform that a lot of other racing series went through. Yeah,
that would be exactly correct. And
would that be a week? Would that be a week to week adjustment?
That's a good question.
Great question. And the hard part about it is a part of balance of performance that I wanted to mention, and I let it slip. So I'm glad that my very handsome friend Seth brought it back up here. Is the way you balance, especially NASCARs, talking about super speedway racing versus road course racing versus short tracks versus maybe someday they'll end up going to Port Royal. Who knows?
Wouldn't that be something?
That would be fantastic. I would go. I only live an hour away from. Balance of performance utilizes methods that we see vary in importance race to race. If a car, has a lot more drag than another car, and that as a response to balance of performance, if one car is set up to have way more drag, doesn't mean shit at Martinsville. Doesn't mean shit at Bristol. Well, not really, but like a little. I mean, race. It has to be race to race, I think, if you want to be legitimate with it. Because if you create a car that has 20 pounds more drag, and you say, okay, that's it. The whole season, you have 20 more pounds of drag than the Chevys. The Chevys are going to they're going to wipe you off the table at Talladega. It is not even going to be a challenge or a conversation. But the flip side of that is then you go to Martinsville and, whatever. If you let them
sounds like what we have now.
I mean, yeah, but it's going to be like that one time at Talladega where they only had 2 actual Cup Series cars and a bunch of the challenge. It's not even.
Wow.
It'd be like running GT cars and Le Mans cars.
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of, now what we have is more like Denny Hamlin said, nothing can be better than the current Chevy, basically. That's kind of the limit. But I was thinking more
as far as like drag numbers and aero.
Yeah, as far as the actual
dynamically.
Yeah, as far as the body goes, that's as good as it's going to get. I meant more like, so Buddy had specifically mentioned like neutering Hendrick, and that would have to be like a week to week thing because they're always finding little things. So would that be every month or so, like, okay, Hendrick's running too well this month, let's see what they're doing, and then the next month, like, RFK is running too well. Let's see what they're doing. And then in an alternate reality, they'd be like, oh, RCR is running really well this month. What do we do to fix that? Would that be part of BOP, or is that a totally different aspect? Because like I feel like I wouldn't want to ever lose that aspect of competition. Finding the little things, because like that's all we kind of have right now. So I'm just curious, is that a part of that, or is that different?
Oh, I think so. I think no matter whether you have balance of performance or not, they're still going to be trying to find ways to be better that can then either, it's either Hendrick figures something out, they win 3 races in a row, and then they get exploited and everybody does it, or it's, why are the Hendrick cars so much better than everybody else? We need to figure out a way to equalize that. But I do think that feeds into what I said a little bit, because it is still going to change if this all happens. It is going to be so drastic between the results you see at Martinsville and the results you see at Talladega that you can't. I don't know if you're exactly going to be able to tell based off of each team, unless I guess if you compare every Chevrolet and go, the Hendrick cars are always the front 3 of there's something there, but it adds an extra layer to it that it's like, yes, but will the effect be as significant as it is now? The answer is no.
I would imagine, this is kind of all I have. I would imagine that this is going to drive cost up exponentially.
That's a good question. Theoretically, it could, but I think what it might do is it might actually it might actually entice more funding to come in. And the reason I could say that, I'm trying to be optimistic on this one, because if they start sanctioning more, that just means, unless they start sanctioning and saying you're building your bodies out of chrome moly and you can only get it from Chuck's Auto Parts.
Well, I mean, that's kind of how it is right now with the next gen.
If you do that, I think it opens up the opportunity for somebody like Honda or Chevy, Ford to say, hey, the NASCAR is allowing us to develop some stuff. They're allowing us to build a new engine. Whatever engines they're sticking in their cars, go put a race version in the NASCARs and try stuff and make it better, make it more efficient, make it faster. And then you can take that and you can stick it back in production cars, commercial stuff to sell on the roads, and you've got better cars on the roads. I mean, they're stock cars, right? They're supposed to be. That's what they're supposed to be. And that's what it was for such a long period of time. That's why way back in the day, I mean, you had the fabulous Hudson Hornets to go all the way back to that. It was Hudson, the car company, going, we want to make a better car. Obviously, it wins those races and we sell them the next day. So I think there's a potential that it actually, it would be more expensive, but I'm tempted to say that the manufacturers would be willing to put more money into it.
Not necessarily more expensive for the teams, the individual teams.
It is research and development. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Potentially.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anybody?
Chuck, you said nothing. Do you have anything?
I have absolutely nothing.
I'm curious to know. Chuck, you're very old school. What do you think about this?
There's a reason I haven't said anything.
I knew it. I told Seth before that. I said, Chuck's not going to like this.
Chuck, this is very 1990s.
This is okay. So to kind of put it in layman's terms, this is very vintage NASCAR. It's just in a different way. Instead of in, spoilers and, fender flares, this is, I mean, in a way, kind of that, but it's more technologically advanced than it used to be. But it's in the same vein as what we had back in the 90s, back in the heyday of NASCAR. And even back, if we go all the way back to the era wars of the late 60s and early 70s, the things of that nature. So, I mean, at least in my opinion, from the sound of it, if this does become a thing in NASCAR, I think one, it gets away from all the spec racing that we have now, which I think is only good. Sounds like it could bring more manufacturer support, that's great. And also it seems like it would just, yeah, it's balance of performance, but it also seems like it would I feel like there's an opportunity for us to see some different. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, I feel like it'll create
something different.
But
the racing will be different. Yes,
Yeah.
if this is the case.
It'll be something different, but I think it'll be more of. I think it'll be the more discrepancy between the team. Okay, I'll formulate my thought and I'll come back.
Balance
saying
of
that
performance will lead to
performance would-
more discrepancy.
The field will fan out more. Is that what you mean? Or
I think honestly it'll. This is why I said come back to me, because yeah.
So
I think
it very likely could make things more spread out, but it would be like there would be weeks. There would be types of racetrack. I would think, this is my guess. There would be racetracks where the Chevys are winning, and there would be racetracks where the Fords are winning, and racetracks. Like, you would know every time you went
now.
to.
I just think that there would be. I think what I'm trying to say, there would be more opportunity for a team to develop throughout the year instead of Ford showing up this year and being like, man, we suck. We're going to have to go back to the drawing board and hope to be better next year.
I think so, but that requires NASCAR to allow them to change stuff throughout the year. And if they're balancing the performance of the cars, I'm not sure they're necessarily going to do that, because they're going to make a formula for how they can make the Fords and the Chevys and the Toyotas equal. And then they're going to let Ford figure out a way to be better. They're going to have to change the whole formula.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Seems all right. That's a double-edged sword in there, I guess.
All right. I hate to cut this short, and by short, I mean 40 minutes into it. We've been going on for this for a while. We have a lot of other stuff to get to. So, great discussion. We might have to bring it up again at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
But
I want to hear Chuck's opinion on it at some point in my lifetime.
I'm sure you'll get it at some point, just not on this show, because Chuck is a journalist and he keeps his personal opinions to himself. All right, so we ran in the rain this weekend. Chuck, what did you think about that?
Man, just gonna throw me right in and make me talk, huh?
Yeah.
So are we talking specifically about the end of the Cup race?
In general,
when we ran.
Anytime we ran on wet. Yes, the end of the Cup race.
Specifically about the wet tires, or in general the last 2 hours of what was?
What did you think about the last 87 hours after the red flag of the NASCAR Cup Series race at New Hampshire Motor Speedway? Charles Entertainment Folsom. Is that specific enough?
Yes, I'm going to do a thing that I notoriously do not do very often. And I'm also going to do something that I notoriously do very often.
Oh, okay. I know exactly what he's going to do.
NASCAR did a lot of good things. And NASCAR also made some very questionable decisions. I'm going to call them questionable. So I was obviously at Loudon, and you can feel the rain coming. First of all, I do want to make a point kind of related. Had this race not gone back green, Joe Gibbs Racing would have looked like the biggest clowns on the planet, because all three of their cars came down and took 4 tires and fuel when there was a massive cell of rain that we all thought at the track was going to end it 15 minutes from the track. And they all pitted and handed the race to Tyler Reddick. So I was fully prepared.
Close, to be fair.
And he didn't get there. And he had the race won had he just stayed out. I was fully prepared to call them the biggest idiots on the planet. But when it's sitting there drizzling and the track is wet, but it is hardly raining, we should have been racing. And the entire media center was saying it. You guys were saying it. Everybody on Twitter was saying it, except for some people who are, for some reason, fully against wet weather tires. We should have been racing. That is the conditions they were made for. And then people were throwing around the excuse of, oh, well, there's no wipers. Yeah, well, this is 4 days after NASCAR just said there's no wipers on the car because defoggers and Rain-X work better. So there goes that excuse. Give me another one. And then they haven't called it and they haven't called it. And it's like, okay, maybe they're actually going to wait this out and do it. And I said to you guys, their hand is going to be forced in this because the only way we run to the end of this race is on the wet tires. We don't have enough daylight. And we still almost did. And honestly, it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen at a racetrack in person. I went to the middle of 3 and 4 for the first restart. On my way there, I visually watched Kyle Busch clobber the wall before the millions of the rest of us did. We'll talk about him later. They were using from the apron in the grass to the wall at Loudon. We discovered 74 new grooves that we never knew we had, and it stayed that way for a while. It was fantastic racing. Goodyear, take note. You should do this with your slick tire. Make it softer.
They did do that.
There was the only bad things about what happened on the wet weather tire were under caution, not under green. Because under green, it was fantastic. And I will say one thing about under caution. I know I'm rambling, but I have a kind of an in-depth opinion on it being there. Under caution, I applaud NASCAR for making the pit stops non-competitive. Because when you make them competitive, especially when pit road is not dry, and yes, people are going to say, oh, well, every other racing series that races in the rain has competitive pit stops in the rain. Well, they also don't have 36 cars out there on pit road at the same time that are packed as close together as ours are.
We do. Watkins Glen.
Not in, okay.
So we do this anyway.
And we shouldn't. Because when you are having competitive pit stops in the rain in that situation, the risk for trying to gain 1/10 of a second on pit road does not make up, the reward does not make up for the risk of accidentally running over the guy in front of you, Jackman, that slipped and fell down coming around the car. It's not worth it. If you want it now, should NASCAR be letting them determine what tires they want to put on and when they want to put them on? Absolutely. There's no reason for them to be holding the team's hands and saying, hey,
we'll get into that. Yeah.
But the non-competitive part, I understand, because you're bringing up safety hazards that aren't worth the risk to the outcome of the race, in my opinion.
So,
other than that,
question.
Great job, NASCAR.
Agree.
Question. You mentioned under caution. Do you think they should be allowed to pit under green?
Yes.
Competitively. Okay.
Yeah. Because when you're under caution, everybody is together.
Yeah.
You have all those cars, they're all going to come down at the same time. Any pit road incident and injury we've ever seen, 9 times out of 10 happens under yellow flag pit stops.
Yeah, because we shouldn't be stacking the field before we let everybody pit anyway. That's another fucking NASCAR thing that drives me crazy.
I think, this can be solved real quick with pit road speed limiters and having one for the wet, one for the dry.
Yeah, should be like 10 mile an hour slower for the wet.
Exactly. And yeah, I think
in a world that we don't have that, though, it's not worth the risk of putting all those guys
in a world we could easily put them on. Even if you're,
right.
even if your limiter,
I'm not saying
even if
not
you're
better alternative.
I'm not arguing with you, but even if your limiter is only works during wet, which I don't think we should do, but if you wanted to do that, that would be fine. Your 35 mile an hour speed limit button for the wet conditions. Now, when you determine that's wet, because as soon as you go off of the wet tires, do you not have to use it anymore? You'd have guys going different speed. I guess you'd have to have NASCAR determine what speed it is there.
Yeah.
That would have to come to NASCAR. That's kind of along the lines of, I was at the 6 Hours of the Glen this past weekend, so I didn't actually watch New Hampshire live. And what IMSA does with wet weather is they make an official statement and they call it out to everybody and they say, this is a wet session now. You'd have to have NASCAR call that.
Well, they already do it. So
yes.
yeah.
I think
I mean, you've made your point.
The best way to say it is the reason I think you can have competitive pit stops under green and non-competitive under yellow
is because there's green a bunch of cars. We get it.
No, because green flag conditions is a competitive condition on the racetrack, and yellow flag conditions are not. On the racetrack, we are not under a competitive condition under caution.
So we don't need that.
Pit road,
I guess.
All right, so I'm going to volunteer to go next. My issues with it are we're going to start with the good stuff. The racing was great. Here's why the racing was great. Not because the fucking tire is really soft or whatever. It's because there's margin for error. If you made the tires harder, it would still be there because it's a condition that these guys are not comfortable in. It's a setup that they're not, it's a type of racing they're not set up for, that really no one is going to know how to set up for a little while, because it's not a common thing that we do, or anybody. It's not there. So the reason is not the tires. So going to Goodyear and saying, and we've seen it already, they used this exact tire compound and it didn't look like this because it wasn't the same. That margin of error wasn't there because there is none in the next gen car. We need to get that back. But anyway, that's why the racing was great. B, absolutely telling the teams what tire they have to be on is asinine. There were plenty of teams there that could have tried to go run slick tires at the end of that and made a hell of a show out of it.
Oh my God, yeah.
It would have been unbelievable because you would have had probably the top 10 or 12 guys, maybe even only the top 5, who knows, stay out. No, it would have been more than that. There would have been a handful of guys staying out on their wet tires, and you'd have had a bunch of guys at the back charging on slick tires and probably fucking up. But, we had enough wrecks anyway. Might as well throw a couple more in. Who cares? Yeah. Here's my other issue. We ran how many laps under caution every single time? It's absurd. Almost the entirety of the IndyCar race took place during after the red flag portion of the NASCAR race. 80 laps. 95 laps of Laguna Seca was almost completed in that amount of time. That's awful. That way too long. Way too long.
And you know why? Because they were worried the tires wouldn't last.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't
make a difference if you let the teams decide what they're going to do.
Exactly. I want to know, we talk so much about, we can't add horsepower because we got to save the team's money. We got to save the teams. I mean, how you save team? I mean, you're not saving teams any money because you're paying Cliff Daniels and Chris Gabehart and all these crew chiefs. These teams are paying them a whole lot of money to sit on that pit box and just watch. They weren't crew chiefing the last 80 laps of that race. So you want to talk about that was a waste of salary right there. They're just sitting up there. Chuck could see a fan up across the dam in the grandstands that could have called that race. It was, that's the biggest thing. I mean, rain racing, everybody's making a big deal about how great it is. And it's we've never seen it like this before. We've seen fucking them run in the wet before. It's nothing new. It's awesome. We all know it. The tire's great. We should run it on, dry conditions. But yeah, it is absolutely the dumbest thing. It damn near defeats the purpose of the tire to begin with. Because isn't it to put on a race? It's barely a race.
Do we know how long it took from when they rolled them back out and put the caution back out to the time the race ended?
I think it was like 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Okay, we could have definitely dried the track, or at least 70. We could have dried 70% of the track and gone on the slicks and got done sooner.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Joe, what'd you think of the race?
So I kind of fall in line with what my main man Seth Dolby said here. One of the things that's really great about motorsports in its time is, I think especially with something like stock car racing, is the racing gets really good when you start putting cars in situations where they have too much power. And in a wet or damp situation, even though the cars don't have as much horsepower as maybe we all want them to, they were not stable. And that made it a hell of a show. I loved watching back what happened at New Hampshire when I got back from the race I was at, which also had a bunch of rain and was crazy for a little while. When I got back and I saw the way they were running into those turns, I mean, they were diamonding the corners. It was like in too deep, up too high in the middle, and you cut back in off the exit of the corner and got a really good run down a straightaway. And they're all over the racetrack and they're trying crazy lines, running the apron the whole way around the track. Like, it was fantastic. Something that made the drivers drive. That's something that sometimes misses these days that I think is really great. Anytime you have a race car, that's why Formula One in the 60s was exciting, because the tires were way too freaking small for what they were doing. But it was exciting because the cars were strong and powerful. So I really enjoyed it. I actually was watching it back, checking it out, making sure I could talk and sound like I know what the hell I'm talking about on this podcast, which I evidently didn't do. But I was excited watching the replays back. I was genuinely having a good time, and I wasn't even watching it live. Now, albeit caution situation, ridiculous. I mean, the amount of time you wait for the action is not going to help your viewership, but what you waited for, I thought it was worth it.
Yeah,
can I add something?
Yeah,
I mean, sure, Chuck, go ahead.
Okay. So I talk. What?
Go.
I want to build on what Joe said and what Seth said. I almost said
I
Buddy.
wanted to too.
Buddy up there.
Nah, Buddy hasn't talked yet.
Okay. Yeah, Buddy has talked.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of has, yeah. Anyway, go.
Whatever. Christopher Bell mentioned that in his press conference post-race. He mentioned the margin of error, and he brought back up the Xfinity car from Saturday and said the reason that car is so fun is because we slide them around, and it puts it in the driver's hands. They don't have that next-gen car, and he mentioned multiple times they had that on Sunday evening. I watched him do it. He just about plowed the turn 3 wall on one of those first laps that he was in the lead. I don't know if TV caught that, but he booked it off into 3 and was very close to ending his race, just like Kyle Busch did. And I was standing on the exit of 4, and I was just blown away because I was watching all the leaders come off 4, and they were spinning the tires. Some of them, I saw Larson and Blaney a couple times when they were trying to run down Bell. They were dead sideways coming off 4. And I was like, holy crap, I've never seen this in an X-Gen race in my life.
Yeah.
So it's just all about drivability. When they have the ability to wheel the race car around and it's not either pointed the right way or wrecking, the racing gets more spread out. You have comers and goers like Josh Berry, Chase Briscoe, and Chase Elliott that drove from 75th to the front, and it's a great race.
Yeah. I mean, if you go, it boils down to it simulated having more horsepower because, one, you didn't have enough tire underneath, and that's why I'm not saying anything groundbreaking. That's why we need soft tires. But the discrepancy from the straightaway speed to the corner speed is a huge deal. I mean, that right there, that is your catalyst for great racing. And if you have softer tires, you're gonna have the discrepancy in speed in the center of the corner versus however fast you're going into the corner. That's also going to open up Pandora's box as far as, driver ability. The drivers are going to have more opportunity to make a difference. And you're going to just, overall, yeah, I mean, that's what it boils down to. That's, honestly, it's just, it opens up the ability for the driver to make a difference. And that is, we saw that too, the knob was cranked to 100, on Sunday with this. So, I think this is something that we need to be chasing. What, Chuck?
Do we need to be chasing it or do we need to be chucking it? Pick one.
Ooh.
No, when you said the thing about driver ability and this margin for error, I just thought
What about?
when I turned around and looked at the Jumbotron and just saw Noah Gregson probably be one of our dumbasses here in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, well, and here's the thing. You saw in this entire last run of this race, you saw the best drivers at their best and the worst drivers at their worst. You saw the discrepancy in skill that we don't get week to week with next gen. Like, I mean, and it all boils down to, drivers making a difference. And it's not something they get to do every week.
What I love about this is that plays all the way into our narrative because Joey Logano looked like an idiot. Corey LaJoie looked like an idiot. I love this. This is, never mind. I need to go change my vote on the Jeff Gluck poll.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't set Joey Logano up very well. He looked like an idiot when they rolled that car off the trailer, and it looked like it did. It was an ugly car.
That's a good point. It's a good point, Joe. It's a good point.
I don't know why I kept thinking it was, but I didn't think it was Hunt Brothers. Every time it happened, I was like, wait a minute.
And if you guys are wondering why we're not talking about any time before the wet weather tires, it's because nothing really of note happened. It really sucked before that.
I thought it was okay, but it wasn't worth talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a New Hampshire race that happened.
Yeah.
A typical.
See, I hadn't really gotten to, I remember we talked about this before and we were like, oh, I don't think New Hampshire has been terrible with next gen or whatever. I'd never really actually gotten to watch one because they both rained out and I had to kind of halfway watch them while I was supposed to be working. So this is really the first time
They did not both get rained out.
22 and 23 definitely both got rained out.
No, they didn't.
Are you sure about that?
I'm 100%. I know 22 didn't. Last year might have. I can't remember last year.
Last year definitely did.
Last year definitely
22 did not.
I feel like it did because I didn't watch that race either.
Because I went.
I'm thinking of
why
Dover.
later.
I'm thinking of Dover.
I'll tell you why later.
I'm thinking of Dover. Anyway, okay. Okay, I did get to watch that race. It was okay. It was fine. It existed.
Yeah.
It was a race of all time. But
It's a race.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it tells, again, go back to the mission statement of this podcast. It goes to show we definitely need more big motor and whatever the soft tire equivalent of small blade is. We need to make it look hard again. That's what we need to do. This looked hard.
What's that? Anyway,
make it look hard again. Put that on a poster.
Yeah.
Put that on a t-shirt. Make it look hard again.
Yeah. So, all right. Now that we've done this, now the wet weather package, we've seen it all out. We've seen it at the start of a race. We've seen it at the end of a race. Okay, we can go to competitive pit stop. Or maybe not competitive pit stops, but we can let the teams. We can put it back in their hands. We don't have to hold their hand now, right? Like we can do that.
Okay. And can we just bring enough of these sets of tires to where we don't have to run 30 laps under caution?
It wasn't that we didn't have enough sets. It was they were worried they were going to wear out too quick
because we only had 3 sets.
Well, hell, they only got the third set in the last 10 laps of the race.
Well, yeah, but if we didn't milk each caution, they would have gotten there a lot sooner.
That bothered me so much because
half the field would have been on fucking slicks already.
The excuse was we didn't know how to manage the tire wear. What?
Check it.
Exactly.
Well, also that's what racing's all about, isn't it? Isn't racing supposed to? That's what you're supposed to do in racing. You're supposed to push the issue. You're supposed to find the limits. You're supposed to try.
No, Joe, we don't do that here. God.
The only thing you do is make a motor too small and a car that gives people too many concussions. What? Who said that? I didn't say that.
Oh, woo.
That's
no.
Damn, you said it
Correct me
right.
if I'm wrong. But when
You're
because
wrong.
I may be wrong because I was on pit road and not in the media center. That last time that they brought them down pit road, they didn't have the option to stay out, correct?
No,
No,
they
they
never
didn't.
had the out. NASCAR said
Okay.
what tire you were on and whether or not you had to pit every time.
That's just ridiculous. They waited too long to allow them to get new tires and then didn't allow anyone to gamble and stay out. Can we talk about one other thing NASCAR did that really was stupid and altered the outcome of this race?
Hell yeah, that's what we do,
Adding
dude.
fuel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Allowing them to refuel under red is completely bullshit.
I mean, dude, what's his name?
I
Tyler
probably
Reddick
shouldn't have
was
said
toast.
that.
I mean, Tyler Reddick's done. He was dead in the water. I mean, he ended up being dead in the water. He sucked after we went back racing. But there was a whole strategy of guys. Todd Gilliland would have been. Todd Gilliland doesn't finish. I love Todd Gilliland to death. He doesn't finish where he finishes if they don't let him add fuel, and that's just not fair.
Yeah.
That's not fair. And it's all this whole box. Everybody got put in this whole box because NASCAR couldn't let anybody do their jobs. That's it. That's why. And that was, yeah. Here's the thing. A lot of people took a lot of good from this race, and there was a lot of good that came from it. I shared the same sentiment as Chuck. I was frustrated that we didn't slap the tires on before. And then I was like, okay, it probably wouldn't have been worth it to get 30 extra laps. And, I was fine with us waiting out the rain and getting what we got. It was great. It was like NASCAR was like, all right, you guys want candy? We're going to give you candy. Turns out it's licorice. That's what it seemed like. That's what it was like for me. It was like, yeah, I guess you did give us candy, but the candy kind of sucked because you guys dictated what kind of candy you gave us.
Here's the thing. It's kind of like, I guess this whole thing kind of falls under a gray area in NASCAR ruling because under any other circumstance, you are not to touch anything on the car during a red flag sequence. So in this one instance, NASCAR says, oh, okay, instead of making you come down and pit, we're just going to throw all your wet tires on now. So you kind of have negated a pit stop. So honestly, this might not be nearly as big of a deal as I think it sounds.
Well,
just because
they should have treated it as a competition caution because you can't add fuel under a competition caution.
Yeah, but they weren't having competitive pit stops anyway.
Well, a competition caution shouldn't be.
I agree.
Shouldn't be competitive.
I agree,
either. Anyway.
But essentially, it sounds like based off of the way they officiated this race and the way they've done things like this, it seems like we would have the only way to not have it look like we filled them up under red, everybody, would have been to just roll them out on their slick tires and then bring them back down to do the pit stop to change into the wet tires. And then that would have happened anyway.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. A whole box got to open up a bunch of dumb, convoluted, confusing set of circumstances as far as pit road goes because of this whole deal. But either way, was it a success? Were the wet weather tires? Was it a success? Do we think we can?
The racing was a success.
Okay.
The officiating needs some work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think we could have gone racing any sooner?
100%.
Yes. Sure seems like it.
Okay.
By probably 20 minutes.
Okay.
20 minutes. Jesus.
Honestly, as fast as the track drives with these tires, and you know what? I think this will come with them learning and this happening more often, hopefully. They should really put more emphasis, especially if we want to talk about the pit road thing, put more emphasis on drying pit road. And just kind of, while you do that, let the track sit, because as soon as they get out there and they start running, it's going to dry quick.
Park the cars in the garage if you have to.
Park them on the front stretch.
How are you going to get the standing water off the front stretch?
You do a pass through with the air tighten and then roll the cars on the front stretch and then work on the pit road.
Slip and sliding. No,
I just
no air drive.
I mean, just pull them into the
we could have gone
garage.
green a lot sooner, and there were multiple drivers that shared the same sentiment. Some of them were the ones that benefited in the wet, so to take that with a grain of salt. But
You think Kyle Busch thinks we should have gone racing sooner?
I'm still not sure Kyle Busch didn't wreck that thing on purpose to be done.
I kind of thought he did too.
I mean, he was running ass last, so yeah, probably.
I think he stopped on track on purpose after he wrecked. I think he left it on the racetrack on
Yeah,
purpose.
he did. He realized that thing couldn't turn, and it was a piece of shit, and he said, "Fuck it, I'm leaving it here."
Yeah, and I think that needs to be a penalty. I mean, because he's
How you
done
gonna
this
prove
before.
it? How you gonna prove it?
Yeah.
Dude, here's the thing. All right, here's another thing about NASCAR. They worry too much about proving shit. They didn't used to worry about it. They used to rule with an iron in the fist and be like, hey, man, look, this out. Now it's like everything's got to be, handled in a court of law. Look, you're taking away the best part about you being a family-owned sport and not a normal league.
You want the worst run league in North America to have more fucking power?
I want them to know, not necessarily more power, but I want them to be able to. We talk all the time. We got too many people trying to make one decision, and it ends up. We need a Mike Helton or somebody up there. That's the thing. It requires someone like a Mike Helton to be able to make this call. But we need someone that understands racing and can make the call that yo, Kyle, you can't keep parking your damn car on the fucking racetrack. Here's $100,000 fine, or here's you don't get to practice next week or something. But
you're asking them to do this after they already took away the thing that this is supposed to be in the first place. I mean, you've already said that there are instances of this New Hampshire race that aren't racing. Open up the gas cap and fill them up under red. That's not racing. Competition caution. That's not racing. 30 minutes of extra time under yellow isn't racing. I mean, taking away the team's abilities to put whatever tires they want on the car. That's not racing. That's telling them what to do. They're commies. That's not racing. That's at the core of the thing
Buddy
that you
did just
say
ask
you're
for
doing.
NASCAR to rule with an iron fist, so
He's a commie. He's a commie.
NASCAR's best officiating came when they ruled with an iron fist.
You're Soviet.
Am I wrong?
I wrong? You're not wrong.
No, I'm not
I don't think
fucking
you're
wrong.
I don't think
saying we need
you are not wrong,
and
brother.
this is exactly the problem. Is the way we officiate pit road versus the way we officiate a driver's fucking temper and his little temper tantrums that Kyle Busch likes to throw. Those are two totally different fucking things. It should be handled as such. But no, we treat everything as the same because everything's got to be under the same fucking, decision-making process.
I just want somebody to dress up like a baseball umpire and run out on the track when they get pissed off. Throw them out.
Either way.
Dude,
Anyway,
that would be so
Somebody
entertaining.
run up to Kyle Busch and be like, "You're ready." He probably would have looked him dead in the face and said, "All right, I was going home anyway."
All right, how
and
about
then
this?
he would have swung and missed like he did with Joey.
We all are racing aficionados. Raise your hand if you think judging by Kyle Busch's previous actions, if you think Kyle Busch left that car on the racetrack on purpose.
Well, yeah,
Exactly.
but he ripped the fuck out of it.
We all are.
Chuck, how hard did he hit that wall?
Dude, he hit it. I wasn't even to turn 3 yet, and I heard boom, and I was like, "What the? Oh my god!" That was Kyle Busch.
We all have watched racing cumulatively. The 80 years between us, I'll say.
78 of those are you.
That's crazy.
We all are good enough judges of character to realize he left that car on the racetrack on purpose. Why can't we be like, come on, Kyle? No, you don't get to practice next week or something. I don't know. This has gone on way
as far as he hit the wall is why I didn't raise my hand, because I'm not sure, dude. That thing was junk.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like the question is, did he leave it there on purpose? I'm like, yeah, he meant to leave it there, but like, I don't think he had an option.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what
All
I'm saying. I don't know if he could have got it pit road because that thing was toast.
Okay. Anyway, that was just a thought I had, but I forgot. I don't know anything about racing. I never have. So
God forbid we disagree with you a little bit.
What else happened in this race?
Other than that, not much.
Michael
McDowell's an idiot, but we already knew that. Here's the thing. I don't remember the Texas thing very well, to be completely honest, because I hate Texas Motor Speedway, except when IndyCar goes. But
it busts his ass. Here's what it boils down to with Michael McDowell. Here's what it boils down to with Michael McDowell. He goes in here and he starts writing checks that his ass can't cash. That's what happens.
I don't care what he does on the track. Like, do it and fucking own it. That's my problem. He does it and goes, man, I really needed to win that race. Well, like, dude, you know who else needed to win that race? A whole bunch of people who didn't do some stupid shit that you just did. Like, have some accountability for it other than, man, the playoffs, man. Aren't they fucking crazy? Like,
I think every driver needs to drive to the best of their ability. Michael McDowell is trying to drive to the best of some other driver's ability.
That's a statement.
That's pretty good.
Like
that's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah.
If Michael McDowell hadn't gone balls to the walls, all or nothing to win 3 different races now, he'd be in the top 16 in points.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, I mean, I don't know. I think I give a call to Josh Berry. I'm really upset that last call. I think if that last call should not come out, Josh Berry wins the race.
He was about to.
I think he gets to Bell and he wins the race, and I get 5 points out of this pick steal. But
also would have been cool to see.
It would have been very cool to see. I would have been a big fan of Josh Berry winning that race. But yeah, I mean, that was the only thing about it is I wish we had gotten some green racing in, because I think we've gotten a better representation of how the track really changes and how this tire wears. But we have guys with the elite talent level of Corey LaJoie in the back of the field that can't really, like I said, they drive to the best of someone else's ability that's not themselves.
Talk about exposing yourself this weekend. We on this show already knew Corey LaJoie was a complete nutsack who couldn't drive, but damn, he showed it for sure this week. And like, dude, you spin out once, that's fine. I get it. You had never been on this track in the wet, totally fine. Second time, all right, dude, it's time to back down a little bit. It's time to take whatever you thought your limit was and back it down about 5% there. You do it the third time. Holy shit, you need to go home. Like, go home. You are bad. It's like,
maybe if NASCAR ruled with an iron fist, 3 spins, you're out.
I was in a league a long time ago that did that on R Factor. That was the rule. That was it.
That was actual racing series are out there that do that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It'd be a fair rule, to be completely honest.
Yeah. Christopher Bell. I'm convinced this dude could win on sand, dirt, cobblestones.
Rainbow Road.
Well, technically, asphalt is compiled of sand and other. Never mind.
Is it?
He's OP then. He's just, man's as good at New Hampshire.
Yeah, he is. He really is.
And every single time he goes in the media center, he says, "It's not me. I don't have any magic here. It's all Joe Gibbs Racing." And then you ask Joe and Adam Stevens about it, and they're like, "We don't know what he's talking about."
Yeah. It does add up that Gibbs is pretty good here, too. They've always been pretty stout here. Yeah. Christopher Bell, when it comes to race, he won the Coca-Cola 300 and the USA Today 600. So,
He's got an average finish of 1.5 there in a truck. He's 4 for 4 in Xfinity, and he's got 2 wins in Cup, and easily could have an average finish inside the top 5 had he not blown a tire in his rookie year.
And wrecked last year.
And wrecked last year when I picked him. One time I get to pick Bell.
That was a cumulative effort of him speeding on pit road, but
yeah,
that's not cumulative. Both of those are his fault.
Anyway, Anything else? Anything else from this race? Joe, you have anything to add from this very NASCAR of a race we saw in New Hampshire?
No, honestly, no.
Yeah,
It hit all my points. I mean,
Yep.
I do.
Okay, what's up?
It amazes me that the next gen car is just a tank. Like, I know we're like 3 years at thing, and it's obviously been a tank, but Martin Truex Jr., dude, it's all weird, like how you hit the wall determines how quickly this thing breaks. Is if you hit it slightly on the right rear, it's cooked. But if you back it in, like Martin Truex did off turn 4, I mean, with the Gen 6, the fuel cell is probably laying on the front straightaway of that car. And he drove that thing back to the top 10 in the rain and finished in the top 10.
Well, yeah, he took all the brunt. He took the brunt of the hit, not the damn car.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, and so did Bubba. I don't
see. Here's the thing: a cup car, a Gen 6 cup car is like, I guess, an F-150 basically, and a next gen cup car is like a fucking Tesla Cybertruck. There's no crumple zones on this damn thing.
That's
just
facts.
like us. I feel like I'm gonna just start tweeting that
And we got
Elon
a bunch
Musk
of morons driving them.
Yeah, we really do. I'm gonna start tweeting that Elon just stole the next gen idea for the Cybertruck because that's clearly what happened here.
I think we're ready to get in the accolades. I don't have really much else to say about this race. I mean, it was a race that happened, and it would have been great, but NASCAR meddled with it. So I think
I will say this,
and then we're moving on.
Obviously, the weather wasn't ideal throughout the weekend. You'd love to have a beautiful race weekend all year long or all weekend long, and I think we'll get that next year when it's not in the middle of summer
in the
proper spot.
Yes.
But Loudon is great. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed being at that racetrack all weekend, even with the weather. I don't know. There's Northeast NASCAR fans are a different breed. I don't know. There's something about it. It's a different vibe than you get from being back home. That it didn't matter. It was pouring down rain, and they were all still out there tailgating, having a good old time. Whereas we would have been like, we can go next week. We're just going to go inside. They don't have that option.
I don't know if you've
the
ever
area
met
around
me.
the track is really pretty. The infield's nice. There's a lot of, even from the infield, there's a lot of spots where you can see pretty much everything going on. And so I enjoyed it. I definitely cannot wait to go back there.
I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You didn't go to Dick Bergeron's museum out there off the...
I didn't have time.
Nope.
I would have loved to, but I didn't have time.
Such a fucking goddamn. Anyway.
What?
Sundress and dumbass.
All right, my sundress is Justin Haley. Ran fucking fantastic, and then unfortunately got, I guess I said, some damage at the end and wound up 29th.
Yeah, when Michael McDowell spun out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, Justin's been running great, and he did it again, and I'm a big fan. Go, Justin.
Hell yeah. Chuck, you got sundress?
Yeah, I got 3 of them. These 3 guys I met at the dirt track Friday night. Justin, Jack, and Kevin. Y'all are some dudes. We had a blast hanging out in the rain and waiting on them to run 15 laps in a sprint car. We watched a guy in a mini spread go unconscious when he smacked the entrance to the track on the back straightaway. And then somebody, this kind of leads into a dumbass, but I'm going to throw it in here since it relates. Somebody forgot the fireworks show on a timer at 10 p.m. because while they're loading him into the back of the ambulance, the fireworks show went off.
They didn't blow anybody's dick off this week, did they?
No, that didn't happen. But, when a
They
guy's
said it on DBC. We know it happened.
Well, I know, like, that happened, just not this week. But yeah, loading a guy on a stretcher while the fireworks show goes off, not ideal. But they were awesome.
Like right next to it.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh my
next.
God!
If I'm getting loaded up in a stretcher, fuck it, I want some fireworks.
But other than that, yeah, those 3 guys, they were really cool to hang out with. We had fun. So they're my sundress.
I'll be honest, ain't nobody do nothing that really impressed me this week. We're gonna go Josh Berry. Josh Berry did a hell of a job. He continues to do a hell of a job. And I think he gets a win. I think if you look at it, every track that Kevin Harvick excelled at in the next gen car, Josh Berry has done just that as well. And I think that Nashville is going to bear some good fruit for old Josh Berry.
Joseph.
About you, Joe?
My sundress for the weekend is the girl that was running the concession stand in turn 10 at Watkins Glen, because I bought my dad and I chicken tenders to eat, and he wanted a water, and I didn't want to pay for a water, so I didn't order one. And she walked away to get the chicken tenders, and she walked back up, and she was like, "What did you get to drink again?" And I said, "Just one water." And she pulled out 2 waters and gave me a huge smile. That's my girl.
Trying to holler at her? Right here on the show?
I don't think she was 18, buddy. I'm just calling out that she did a good thing for me, bro. That's not,
send her Chuck's way.
Get your stuff.
Send her Abby's way. All right, anyway.
Oh,
Dumbass.
shit.
I'm going to go with me for picking Kyle Busch in the picks this week.
Stupid, dude.
Yeah, that one did not work out for me.
That man is having himself a time.
Yeah, he really is. But like they'd ran okay recently and just, wrecked every week. So I was like, okay, maybe they'll run good and not wreck. No, they ran bad and still wrecked. So, great decision by me.
Kyle Busch make the playoffs?
No.
Yes.
Oh, I don't think.
Where does he
either.
win, Chuck?
I thought he was going to win. I said
The
Michigan.
silence.
Where?
Michigan. Weird things happen in Michigan.
They don't have speed.
Yes.
I don't know.
No.
Not that kind of speed.
He's just been trashing Loud. They've had speed. He's just terrible at Loudon.
They've been quick, but I don't see raw horsepower out of that team.
Yeah.
I know they're all the same, but
either Michigan or, well, no, that's in the playoffs.
I could see Pocono. Okay, the only thing I could see would be Pocono. Because Kyle Busch has a knack for winning a fuel mileage race at Pocono. But anyway,
I don't think
he wins. I don't think he wins.
My dumbass. I got a couple. Michael McDowell, prime candidate. What's his name in the modified race that wrecked and went out? Andy Seuss, I think is his name. I don't know if that's his name. Don't really care. He's a dumbass.
What did he do? Which one was it?
He got wrecked in the modified race and then decided to walk out on the racetrack to flip off the guy who wrecked him.
Oh, I missed this.
Yeah. And we need to start suspending people for that. If you're walking out there on an active racetrack, you need to not be at the racetrack the next week. I'm sorry. Like, that's just it. I'm sick of it. You know what I've seen? We were very uptight and very, very, stern about this. Don't walk out on an active racetrack. We've loosened up on that rule in the past couple of years. It seems like we've been a little bit more lax than I like to see this rule. I think Joe Gase. I think absolutely that was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. Everybody's like, "Oh, it was funny. He made T-shirts and did whatever the fuck." Like, I don't care. Don't walk out on an active racetrack. I think it's the dumbest fucking thing out there. And someone called me that's why I was called the professional waiver that I was on Twitter this weekend. So because I thought that Andy Seuss or whoever should be suspended.
Hey, be grateful. At least you're getting paid. To be a waiver.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that check, man. But that's my dumbass.
I haven't seen mine yet, so you're gonna see yours.
Yeah, don't walk out onto an active racetrack.
Joe, what's your dumbass?
I'm going to second. Dumbass of the weekend is same guy who won the last time I went to a Cup Series race, Michael McDowell. What are you doing, bro? What was bro's plan?
All right.
So Michael McDowell doesn't have a plan.
I have an honorary mention to Noah Gragson because
God has a plan. Michael McDowell doesn't need one.
Dude, Noah Gragson, his was worse than so I don't know where he was going. Well, I don't know.
Gregson just got on the paint and spun out.
It was just really stupid to watch, though.
I mean, it was goofy, but
He did pitch that son of a bitch in there.
Oh yeah,
Didn't
100%. But I
stick
don't
it
think I think he would have been fine if he just didn't like ride it up on the paint and fucking
No.
slam on the gas when he did.
But
I mean, it was still dumb. Still dumb.
My dumbass, and he is a dumbass of the year candidate. The blowhard track security guard that was standing at the media center. Oh my God, this guy. So there's a gate, and then there's the media center, like a big gate that they can close. Yes, Joe, a gate. So the NASCAR comms lady is standing by the exit of the media center. She set up the bullpen for us because Kyle Busch just went in there.
Yeah.
And I'm the first one over there because I was already in turn 3. And the guy, I went to go walk over to the bullpen because she like pointed at it. And he goes, no, you're going to wait here till he comes out. And I'm like, okay, whatever. It's me. Guy has no fucking clue who I am, right? I'll just wait till Kyle Busch comes out. It's not that big a deal. Here comes Bob Pockris marching up. Bob goes to walk in. He stops Bob. And he goes, nope, you're not allowed in there. You have to wait. And Bob's like, oh, okay. And the comms lady, she'd gone back inside. When she comes back out and she's like confused because Bob and I are just standing there like 30 feet from the bullpen thing. And this guy's just not letting us go in. Finally, here comes Kim Kuhn, decked out in NBC clothes with the guy carrying an umbrella.
I'm sure.
With a guy carrying an umbrella behind her and 3 camera people. And this dumb son of a bitch stopped her, and every single one of them said, nope, you're not allowed to go in there. And she was like, what? Literally, she goes, what? And he goes, yep, I'm not letting you guys aren't allowed in there yet. And she's like, okay. And then the lady comes back.
This is my sundress, actually.
The lady comes back out and she's like, what are you guys doing? Bullpen's over here. And we're like, yeah, this guy's not letting that happen. Nobody's talking to Kyle Busch today. And finally, she's like, the guy's like, I'm not letting anybody in. And she's like, well, they're supposed to come over here. And he got so butthurt that he was wrong. Oh my God, he was so mad. It's my favorite thing in the world to watch dickhead security guards get knocked off their high fucking horse that they're on for some reason. I don't know why.
He stopped TV and Bob Proctor. I mean, I'd stop you, Chuck. But I mean, he
stopped me too.
TV
but TV and Bob?
Yeah,
what?
that's
what?
That's like,
And
holy
of course, we go through
that guy had the president come to his house and he was like, oh, you may be the president, but only I know where the bathroom is.
Yeah, get off my yard, buddy. So finally, we go through all that just for Kyle Busch to walk straight out and not look at any of us, not even TV.
That is a genuinely awesome Kyle Busch story.
He didn't even glance at TV, dude. He walked straight out, and the comms lady goes, well. And Kim Kuhn was like, okay, then. And we all just walked away. And I was like, all right, that was fun.
You know what you should have done, Chuck? In all the shock and awe that Kyle Busch has blew off the media, you should have been like, hey, Kyle, check Fast and Furious.
Do you think you're washed?
Anyway,
all right.
Yeah, that guy gets dumbass of the year candidate.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Was New Hampshire bitching?
Yes,
kind of.
Nah.
If we just take the racing, yes. If we take all the NASCArisms amongst it, then no.
Okay.
They're called NASCArisms for a reason, Seth.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm able to compartmentalize and take out the NASCArisms and judge them without them.
This was top tier.
Yeah,
this was top tier.
This is all-time NASCAR-isming.
This was an all-time NASCAR race.
I think my perspective is different because I wasn't sitting on my couch waiting for them to restart, listening to them explain.
I got that backwards. This was a NASCAR race of all time, not an all-time NASCAR race.
It was an all-time NASCAR-ing.
Yeah, that too. I just think my opinion was held by the fact that
I
was patiently waiting watching them go by, like busy talking in the group chat. I'm like, while we were going to write about. So it like the time passed so fast for me. It was just like, oh, we're racing again. So I thought it was fun to watch.
I think NASCAR, maybe part of the problem with how long their cautions take is that none of them have watched a race on TV. It's so much more excruciatingly awful to sit there and watch cautions on TV than it is in person. Like, it's genuinely not as bad. The only time I've even noticed a caution being long at the track was Bristol this year when they ran them longer because the tires couldn't cut it.
2016 Martinsville.
Hey, you know how
I remember that one. I remember that one.
Hey, you know how quick I can pee at my own house versus at a racetrack?
You know how quickly I can pee at the racetrack? I did it at fucking Indianapolis 500 in 3.5 minutes flat.
Bro timed it.
You can ask Matt Faust. He and his dad see me run back up and they go, wait, did you just run and pee? I was like, yes. They're like, how?
You're not allowed to leave your seat during the Indy 500 set.
Caution came
treason.
out. Caution came out.
Nope, it's still laps of the Indy 500. You're missing.
That's fine.
terrible.
I can miss a caution lap in the Indy 500.
Mr.
out of here.
Mr. Quick Pisser over here. Okay.
Mr. Quick
I am,
Pisser.
dude.
I'm changing his name in my phone contact.
Put it on a t-shirt.
All
Put it
right.
on a t-shirt.
Picks for New Hampshire. I picked Josh Bennett. He put on a hell of a show and got me the dub. So I appreciate that. So I get to pick first for where are we going? Nashville?
Nashville.
I don't think I've picked this person yet. And I meant to check, so we didn't delay this, but I'm going to pick, we can go with old big time Ross Chastain, man.
I take it that's who you're going to pick, Chuck.
And I did not pick a backup. I've literally saved Ross all year for this race, too.
Yeah, well, you can thank old Joshua McBarry, who himself.
I can thank Joey Logano. And I already wasted the Corey Haim thing, too. Dang it.
Yeah, you're
Corey
an
Haim.
idiot.
Oh, yeah, Corey Haim is running.
Joe, who are you picking for Nashville? You can be on this.
You
You
know,
can pick whoever the fuck you want.
I'm just gonna go with I'm gonna pick a guy who runs the same brand of car that I have, that I like. I think it's fun. I root for Tyler Reddick, so I'm gonna say Tyler Reddick.
All right. Tyler Reddick's going to win this damn race. And Joe's going to be in the Big Motor Small Blade Picks playoffs.
I might be.
Is that how that works?
Make the playoffs before Chuck does.
I'm just going to stop picking
Yeah,
a
we don't
certain
have
track.
No, I
waivers.
got the first win.
I'm
I
just
am
kidding.
the only win of the season.
I just kid.
We have the only win.
That's not true. I picked Denny Hamlin somewhere he won.
Oh, yeah, that's you. No, so I picked Denny Hamlin at Bristol, and then
Holy
I picked
fuck, I don't care. Pick
I
someone.
picked Truex at Richmond, and he picked Hamlin. I should have.
Startling. Seth, make a pick. He lost. He lost.
Justin Haley.
Hell yeah. That's
You
actually
mean
a good
hell
pick.
yeah.
Hell yeah. I already say hell yeah.
Chuck, you're out of cheerwine country. You got to pick something. Do you like cheerwine, Chuck?
Dude, it's not hard,
I
man.
love
There's
Cheerwine.
only 38 of them out there,
Definitely.
and you've picked about half of them already. So, I mean,
Screw it. I'm gonna do it.
ASAP.
he's
Yeah,
picking Austin
okay.
Dillon. Oh,
Kyle
Okay.
Busch, are you fucking serious?
no, Chuck's got a golden horseshoe stuck up his ass when it comes to fucking.
No. Big Sean once said, "Last night took an L, but tonight I'll bounce back." That's what Kyle Busch is gonna do. It's all Chuck right there. I'm with it, Chuck.
Who's leading the
Anything-
picks?
Anything, who the
Buddy,
fuck knows?
I think?
No.
It's either Buddy or Chuck. It's definitely not me.
Chuck's
Then it's definitely
fucking
me.
killing us. I
Oh, yeah, it's
think.
probably Chuck.
It's
Yeah.
me. Put me on. It's me.
Put
Yeah.
me in, coach.
Doesn't matter. Playoffs can come. Playoff time, Joe's gonna kick our asses.
We don't
Right.
have a playoff format.
That's right.
We're just gonna play each other off.
All
Say
right,
no
you know,
more.
like
Say no more.
Yeah, all right. So that's been the show. We're going to Nashville next. Chuck is actually going to Nashville next week.
Bet he is.
Chuck, do you got to go to? Oh, you can't get in the fuck. You can't. What the fuck are you
You
going
can't do-
Nashville for? You can't do anything in Nashville worth a shit.
We're not going to Nashville at all.
Yeah, I flew out
What's
there.
the point of going to this race?
I flew out there for one day and didn't do anything else and fell asleep 30 minutes
and
into the cup
don't you
race.
regret it?
We're going
Marginally, because Chase Elliott won.
to the fairgrounds Thursday night, but I'm still
Okay,
not.
there you go. All right.
But
Good.
I'm also covering that race, so
All right. Well, at least you're doing something. Nashville's awesome, man. I'm so glad we race here.
I can't wait to go back for the IndyCar race that someone else should go to, but won't for no reason. Who? Someone in this call. Joe, do you want to go to Nashville for the IndyCar race?
There's a very high possibility that I could do that.
Oh, really?
Chuck wants to go
Yes.
next year, but
It's Darlington weekend next year,
yeah, exactly. And,
which is
you
a
know, that's-
no-go. I will skip certain things for other things, but I will not skip the Southern 500.
I can't. If you're referring to me, I can't go to Nashville IndyCar this year.
No, I was referring to Buddy because he said he wanted to do it. And he's like, no, man.
Hey, we'll talk about this later. All right. That's fine. I Push to Pass. I haven't seen a check from Push to Pass, and now I'm not going. So
There's no money in Push to Pass. I can guarantee you that one.
yeah. So this has been the show, Joe. You got any closing thoughts? I appreciate you coming on.
Dude,
Yes.
I try to have fun with stuff, and sometimes I get a little bit goofy about engineering and math because I was an engineer in college. But man, I love my friends. I have such good friends. I'm so grateful for you guys every day of my life. I'm dead serious too. Like, I've known Seth and Buddy for about 10 years. So like some of the best friends I've got, like good people, good quality, personable, kind,
Debatable.
or genuine friends of mine that I appreciate a ton, and I don't get to see them a ton, so I try to take every moment I can, be grateful for them. Chuck, it was fantastic to meet you this evening. I'm gonna buy you cheer wine someday. I get you a cheer wine.
Fantastic to meet you too, Joe.
Bang.
Yeah.
And I hope
Yeah.
everybody enjoyed me being really overly technical. That's
Yeah.
how
That was great.
I
No,
get paid.
it really was. It really
Yeah.
was. It was great. And then we got into a complete shish show of an actual NASCAR race. So
It was like
That's-
the race itself.
that's why yeah. But all right, yeah.
All right.
Go fuck yourselves.